Binkelmeiter arrived beside him, his voice gentle with puzzlement. "But you've already saved the world 3 times, Dooven, and apparently against similarly stacked odds." Oscar swore. "Similarly stacked? Binkelmeiter, you have no idea what you're talking about. These odds aren't stacked. They've been piled in a massive heap, set on fire and then backed over by a bus. We've defied the Loud Purr once already, Dooven, and his minions, so I'm certain we can defy him again. The odds are irrelevant anyway. We have to try. It's our duty." "You don't understand," said Oscar, desperate for a bath and sleep, and preferably at the same time. "The Loud Purr is immortal, and from what I've seen of the others, I suspect they are too. They don't even reside in our world anymore. They're beyond our comprehension. To challenge them would be like fighting fire with matches." "Immortal?" said Messington. Oscar nodded, feeling the complete opposite. "I must say I'm surprised at your defeatist attitude, Dooven," said Binkelmeiter. "What about the things you said on the jetty?" "Jetty?" "Yeah, when we were waiting for the Loud Purr to leave, in Barras. You remember? The thing about flailing wildly." "Flailing?" "Yeah, you said you flail wildly. That was your secret to success." After a scoff that was so loud it was mistaken for a sneeze, Oscar said, "I have no secret to success, Binkelmeiter. That was the point I was making. It's been chance and luck so far. That's why I'm still here. But it's now run out. I'm a farce, all right? A fraud. I'm not a Velvet Paw. I'm not even a fluffing poet." Well, that's defeatist again. "It's not defeatist, Binkelmeiter, it's reality. There's a difference." "Yeah, the difference is saving the world or not." Oscar rubbed his face vigorously. "It's already lost. It was lost long before that box of photographs was even labelled curious." Having returned to the room's far side, Lydia yelled from it, "I think Binkelmeiter's right. You're missing the point, Oscar. Whether we succeed or not is oddly irrelevant. We have to try. That's all that matters. As a Velvet Paw, I would have thought that was a given." He turned to her with a glare. "What do you know anyway?" he said, suddenly itching for a fight. It was unfair to be so pressured after having been so pressured. "You're hardly an expert on the real world, Lydia, considering the ridiculous version you live in." She flinched and looked away, and he regretted the words, though felt vindicated by hitting her for a change. "Look," he said, his tone softer, "what's the point in trying when it's already hopeless? We've only just got away with our lives today. We won't have that luck again, and I should know. I've been teasing it long enough." She left the far wall. When she spoke, it wasn't yelled. "I have spent my life fighting hopelessness, Oscar, and I'm not surrendering to it now. We have to try. If we don't, the world is lost regardless. If we do, it will be lost with regard at least." "Exactly," Oscar muttered, folding bruised paws. "And in lieu of such devastatingly poor odds, I wish to regard a nice bath with a soft pillow and a mug of hot fin so massive that it's actually in a bath, and a book, and my bed actually, although not all at the same time, obviously, because the pages would get soggy." He showed them his paws, or what was left of them. "I mean, look at me. I've got more bruises on me than a series of glossy books entitled Countless Bruises Through the Ages, a Connoisseur's Guide." He didn't dare look at the Loud Purr, dreading the animal's disappointment on top of everything else. "I'm so broken that the best I might manage is to throw at those creatures the loose bits that fall off me." There was silence when need for rebuttal dissipated. In its wake, the Loud Purr went to the window and asked everyone except Oscar to leave. There were looks exchanged before they retreated to the hallway and the door was closed. Alone with the Loud Purr, Oscar felt deeply ashamed. He wanted to apologize, but didn't, having meant every word. The Loud Purr watched the view, as he did in the lair. "I should not have said that you are our only hope, Pantaloons," he said, "because that's a rather tired cliché of which these books are undeserving. Nevertheless, I know that beneath your torn and bloodied fur is a courage that rises when you believe you have none. Inasmuch, I have no need to insist you continue this curiosa, because I know you will. Considering his comments about inadequacy, pillows and bathtubs, Oscar was surprised at the Loud Purr's mistakenness.
Do you remember, Pantaloons, that I once asked if you knew why you're not like other Velvet Paws?
Oscar nodded.
And do you recall your reply?
He shrugged, despite it being disrespectful.
You suggested that you were a bit wet,
the Loud Purr said.
You may also recall that I disagreed and suggested instead that it's because you are not a soldier. Does that sound familiar?
Oscar nodded that it did.
I also suggested the catacombs of Asquith have enough soldiers and that we needed Velvet Paws who are more intuitive. Do you recall that also?
He turned and glared until Oscar returned the courtesy.
Your insistence upon inadequacy suggests that you are indeed the latter. True courage, Pantaloons, arises when we're convinced it cannot, as opposed to boasting of bravery in fear's absence. That is the difference between you and other Velvet Paws. While they boast, you doubt, and that raises you above their self-appointed conviction. Their success in Curiosa is through training and brute force, whereas you triumph with little of either.
Oscar looked at his paws and fiddled with soot.
Pantaloons, you know better than most the difference between instinct and intuition, and I wonder whether that gives rise to your poetic tendencies. You have a courage others do not, Pantaloons. A courage that cannot be taught, a courage that cannot be acquired. Instead, it arises when required. It arises regardless.
There was a benevolence in his voice that had Oscar stop fiddling.
I shall not chastise you for your prior comments. You have been through a great deal these last days, not least of all this morning. It is right to be cross when you are so bruised and sore, but I shall nevertheless say this.
He moved closer and glared hard.
I have it upon good authority that you are particularly talented, not just in poetry, but in ways you are not yet aware. I know this from others who know you, Pantaloons, others of whom you know nothing. The despondency you feel now may be overwhelming, but I assure you it is transient. Beneath it lies a caliber that has only just begun to rise.
Oscar stared, wondering whether Lydia's insanity was contagious. Part of him had hoped to be fired so he could go home to bed, but no bits expected praise. The Loud Purr returned to the window.
No doubt you still wonder how you escaped what hunted you in the inaugural halls of Lieb.
He did, though wished he hadn't escaped, which would have avoided this morning's trauma and whatever was still to come. He didn't answer, however, and the Loud Purr turned to him again.
As much as I might wish to,
the Loud Purr continued,
I am not at liberty to divulge how that came to pass, other than to say that were I to, you would retract every discouraging comment made since entering this room. Moreover, you'd be filled with such determination that what you endured this morning would be seen as a pleasant breakfast in an excellent cafe.
He left the window.
You mentioned that Lydia saved your life.
Oscar nodded.
And her state of attire being similar to yours suggests she's suffered no less than you?
Another nod. There was a humph, which implied he'd pondered the loyalty demonstrated.
I shall call the others to return,
the Loud Purr said,
and we will leave the decision to continue this Curiosa up to you.